Hi, my name is Darren and I love discussing African affairs, and you can always follow me or subscribe to learn more over what's happening on the continent, but also majorly my analysis on what I think about what is happening. Now, Tanzania concluded their elections for the president, and the president was sworn in just the other day, President Suluhu, and so she becomes the first female elected president. Yes, I know she was been around. She was the president, but you remember the circumstances under which she came through. She was the vice president before President Magufuli died. He died just months into his second term. So she literally was the president for the whole term. And the constitution does not allow her, to go for the third term. Ideally, had she been remaining with a very small period of time, she would have become president then, run for this term, and probably the next one. But this is much more likely to be her last time, unless otherwise something changes about the constitution. But hey, listen, it was a very controversial election, and from the beginning I remember mentioning here on my channel that some key figures had been removed or banned from contesting for presidency. Okay, and these figures were the most let me say the biggest opposition figures that you would say, the leader of Chadema, Tundu Lissu, who actually would have created a race in this political race. But interestingly, he was not in the race, and another member, was also not in the race. So which literally looked like this was a crowning race for Suluhu. Like this is just a crowning ceremony for her. Unfortunately, the crowning didn't go as the crowning should sound. The things I'm saying, because that's what political analysts kept on saying, that this must be just a crowning ceremony for her. And well, she went ahead and won by 97%, close to 98%, or if you want to say, if you round off all these figures, against all the other people she was contesting with, over 14 other presidential candidates. And all the opponents who were in the same race with her attended her ceremony, where she was swearing in. But we can't say that it was actually a smooth election, because even the SADC, or the Southern Africa Development Community, came out and criticized the kind of elections that they had. Even a few presidents actually congratulated, but the SADC region was not happy with how the elections went. They feel like there was no opposition. The opposition members were banned. There was lots of violence in the election. There was no internet. Indeed, and most of the things that we kept on seeing were coming from maybe people who are VPN, or people who were kind of sneaking information. They found a way. Some people found a way of showing us what exactly was happening in Tanzania. The police brutality against people, the destruction of property by people, and for me it still bothers me to a point that violence has never been a form of correction of what has gone wrong, whether by the opposition or by the government or by members of the public who are angry protestants. Because every time such violence happens, the person who is always looked at as a victim is always the people. But we never talk about what the people or the protesters can do to damage the government. And then you wonder, how should government respond to some of these things? Violence is a very interesting thing, by the way. That if protesters go on the streets and they turn out to be violent, I mean, someone has gone, picked a ballot box full of votes, and then they go smash it somewhere. The electoral officials have run for their lives. You have burnt a house of an official. You have raided the airport. How do you expect security operatives to respond? I mean, to just look and say, oh, please go ahead, enter the airport, go and climb the planes? Because that is an international airport that receives so many other people who are coming from different places, who are not even concerned about what is happening in the country. They're probably just coming to do their business and go. But they are also victims. You find just because someone supports a government that is in power, his house has been burnt down. I had rumors of officials whose cars were burnt, whose houses were burnt, whose businesses were destroyed. And then there's this whole cancel culture that has now come out. Oh, you know what, boycott Diamond Platnumz, don't listen to his station, don't watch his station, don't go to his hotel, don't even book him, don't attend his concerts. And that's the thing. So all these things have been witnessed. And I keep saying, look, you want to be a protester, you want to protest, you want to be the guy who goes on the streets and call for your freedoms and rights to maybe democracy, your democratic rights, and you go armed with violence. I can assure you that that's not how government works. I mean, the way they react is based on how you go on the streets most times. That's how they do. But yeah, we saw curfew being implemented, 6 p.m. everyone has to go home. Right now, we cannot be very sure of what's happening there. But the thing I have seen and that I've never understood in my life is when protests go violent and then you cry a victim. That, for me, has always been a problem. And I'm not going to put a blame on protesters, or because they are also reacting to a situation that's happening. Maybe government has done something wrong, and the protesters are saying this must stop, and they go out on the street and say this must stop. But the moment they turn violent, because I can mention so many protests that have never been violent. If you see how Egypt overthrew Nasser, I forget the other president they also overthrew after 2 years, but he was from the Muslim Brotherhood. They were not violent. Yeah, President Sisi, the one he took over, they were not violent. People just went on the street and said, we are not going home. And they stayed on the street. We are not going home. But a situation where someone says, oh, Darren, you support this kind of leader, let's go burn his house. Yeah, you know what will happen. If those people have an opportunity, they will. Look at what happened in Nepal. So the government is going to spend a lot of money trying to repair the damages that have happened or that have been caused by the protesters, and they are getting it from your taxes. If not, they're going to borrow the money. You damage roads, buildings, public transport. These are the things that you use on a daily. And that's why I don't support violent protests. I'm not saying I don't support protests, but I'm saying I don't support violent protests. They don't make any sense, because whatever you're damaging is going to be paid for, and likely from your taxes and everything. But we've seen, look at what's happening in Sudan. Sudan used to be one of the most developed countries in Africa. They have damaged everything. Well, the protests were not violent. At least that we know. Sudan was not violent. People went on the streets and said, we are not going home. And then it's the military, the paramilitary, or, armed. These two are the ones that clashed and damaged the whole country. But who's going to pay? It's going to be the people of Sudan. Ivory Coast, when an election was not fair, when Gbagbo was overthrown for the current president, who has just also been voted in, when it went violent, property was damaged. Who paid the property? So this is how we stay in the cycle of poverty as states, because even the roads we have, the infrastructure that we have, has come as a loan, and then now you must go and borrow more money to repair the infrastructure that has been damaged by people. Protests are a right, they are constitutional, but I just don't believe in violent protests. Now let's talk about something else here that I've observed that is a little tricky. Listen. Misinformation in such times is the worst you can want to see. There is a video of South Africans protesting with police actually leading them in the protests. Someone posted that as, that's what's happening in Tanzania. I said, look, unless you have traveled, I'm lucky to have been around in some places, about 13 African countries. I can tell which uniform belongs to which country, for police especially. I was just surprised someone posts a video of South Africans protesting and then calls it Tanzanians protesting. You see how that misinformation happens? Now, there were some videos that had come out from Kenya during their financial bill or must fall the protest there, and then the Ruto must go, and then those protests where people were killed, at least for them, they still had internet, and we saw the videos that were coming through. People were streaming these things were on TV, the citizen TVs, and all of the other channels were showing what was happening on the streets. And some of those videos have showed up as if they belong to Tanzania. So if you have not been keen enough to see these things, you might actually think that it is true that the video you have seen from somewhere else is exactly what is happening in Tanzania. And at least I move with cautiousness where to say that, yes, people have been injured. There are people who have died because there are some authentic sources that I speak to who are also journalists that side, and I can't mention them for reasons because they also have restrictions on their end, who have mentioned to me a couple of things like that. People have died, property has been destroyed, people have been beaten, there's violence against people and things, or those things that I've mentioned to me. But the videos, sometimes the content and the context under which people speak with a huge sentiment, sometimes as consumers we need to be very careful about that, because I have seen someone say, and I responded to this one specifically, when someone said over 1,500 people have died and the bodies are nowhere to be seen. And I asked, how did you count 1,500 when the bodies are nowhere to be seen? How do you confirm that number, that over 1,500 people have died and the bodies are nowhere to be seen? How did you quantify that? But yeah, I ask questions most of the times, and if I get it right, believe me, I will say what I have to say, and I say it. So yes, there was violence against the people of Tanzania, especially the protesters. Yes, some people lost their lives in that protest. Is it still ongoing, the protest? I am not sure, but if it's there, we'll see it. And indeed, I am waiting for the time when the internet goes on, because then a lot is going to come out that we probably didn't know. But yeah, it's been tough. There are people who have acknowledged President Suluhu, congratulated him. Others have not. Do I believe now? Here's the thing. Do I believe that election was free and fair? I don't know well the constitution and the laws of Tanzania, but what I know is the opportunity for people to choose who to lead them was narrow. As you needed, not only needed, but would something have been different had the other members of opposition who were banned from participate, then it would be, yeah, I believe that there would be a huge difference, that this 97 wouldn't have been there. Maybe she would have won, because to be honest, Chama cha Mapinduzi has a huge base. That is a fact. It has a huge base, but it wouldn't have been 97%. That's my belief. So yeah, I think that the fact that people were angry and that there's been a campaign of no electoral reforms, no vote, yes, you are likely to see such scenes. Though Tanzania is one of the countries that you would have never expected a protest to happen. Now, anyway, for you who didn't know what happened in Tanzania, yep, now you know. President trained a race with other 14 people, and none of them was as strong as her. She won by 97% or close to 98. Let's just round off to that, probably, because yeah, you must be announced in the 3 days. She was sworn in as the president. Some people, or maybe the observers from the SADC region, said this election was not fair. The swearing that had people like Hichelema from Zambia, who kept on calling out for united the country, and how resourceful Tanzania is actually in the region. So it says, well, we call for unity in the country. President Suluhu also called for unity. Uganda had a representative there who's the vice president, Jessica Lupo. I think even Kenya sent a vice president to go and represent them. The president of Burundi was in attendance. Yes, people died. So there's property that's been lost. There is a cancel culture against the musicians like Harmonize, Diamond Platnumz, Zuchu. Basically, people of Wasafi are having it rough, but I think over time that will pass. So yes, there's a boycott of people who, or businesses that are owned by people who are actually support the government or who are actually in government. So it is a tough one. But yeah, my name is Darren Butler. This must be the longest I've ever done here, but I will see you in the next one. You can subscribe to learn more.